So that's one of the things to be brought out to your attention. Okay. So
Attention.
attention. Yeah. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit off first, maybe with the Kia,
Yeah, do it.
and then
That's
we
fine.
can get into the drone conversation and then Lockheed and so on and so forth. Okay. Here we go. I'm taking
Cool.
taking the helm here. So right off the bat, this is from Auto Week. The 2022 Kia EV6 will offer 577 horsepower in the GT spec. Now, that alone should just get you excited, right? And me as an individual, I get excited when I hear that. But there's something a little bit more to this story, and that is what this thing actually looks like. And these are the pictures directly from Auto Week. And it's actually brilliantly looking, gorgeous car. But there's more to it than just that. And what's also included with this is the specifications: 577 horsepower, 546 pounds of torque. It's got a 77.4 kilowatt hour battery. Okay, the 0 to 60 on this thing is looking at 3.5 seconds, which will make it in the better echelons of some of the faster cars that we know of today. Okay, for most
Mhm.
family go-getters, that is going to be a major upgrade for what you probably already have in the garage.
That's quick.
Yeah,
Yeah.
really quick. Top speed of 162 miles an hour. All right. Now, Corey's going to talk about the range because there's a range standard applied here for both the small battery and the large battery. But they're saying with the larger battery, 317 miles of range, it's going to have an 800-volt battery. Okay. 800 volts. And they're saying that they're going to get out of this thing, which has got a gorgeous interior as well, they're going to get it to charge between 10 and 80% in 18 minutes. Okay, so you
Yep.
are a Tesla Model 3 owner right now.
Mhm.
If you are a future Tesla Model 3 owner and you've got some money in your pocket, what's your theory and your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, looking at what Mike was saying about some of the stuff about it, the range, they're saying supposedly the bigger range, which is the rear drive model, supposedly something around 317 miles. Now, I wanted, as Mike kind of mentioned or hinted at, this is measured with the European measuring cycle, not the EPA.
Hmm.
So typically, when we've looked at this kind of thing, typically the EPA figures go a bit south of that. They're typically not the same
Hmm.
estimates, and so we would expect something. I don't know, maybe 300 miles or something. But the shorter range battery, again, while I don't have exact figures there, I would guess, looking at some of the numbers, something above 220,
Yeah.
somewhere above 220 miles
Hmm.
for the small range battery. And we know kind of the feeling in the marketplace is for basic EVs now, four-door EVs, to have something in 250 miles or more.
The Musk
So
standard.
the
We'll
small
call that
range
the
battery,
Musk standard, right? Because that's what he considers a
well,
standard.
yeah, but I mean myself too as well. Having driven my car, if you guys are unaware, I have a Tesla Model 3 long range version. And so while I do not charge that thing full every day, because you shouldn't do that for the longevity of the battery. When I find myself out driving around, and again, Orlando, Florida, it's pretty spread out. So if you need to go a few places in a day, depending on the traffic and what speed you're going at on highways. I'm thinking I usually want my car charged like 220, somewhere around there,
Hmm.
miles of range total, depending where I'm going to end up. There's plenty of chargers around, which is something else to be said about where you're going to charge this thing,
Right.
since there's Tesla superchargers around many longer areas, longer streets, highways, that which is by design for Tesla. But again, that was something else to say about this car. Again, really like the way it looks. The longer range battery, 317, even if it's around 300, that'd be fine too. It's rear drive, quite snappy, 3.5 seconds, as we said, quite
Oh
quick.
yeah.
So again, it's a four-door EV, and that's quick. That's plenty quick. But again, the same old question comes to mind. We're going to charge this thing, which it needs to be seen. Um, I will say there's some hint that in the future Tesla superchargers might be opened up to other manufacturers. That's kind of still in the works to see what happens there. But nevertheless, this car looks pretty interesting.
So what would
I
you
would
pay?
say
So
if you're into like what's that?
what would you pay though? What would you think? Because I realized there was no price mentioned in that article, right? And I'm just doing some research on what they think the estimated
Yep,
price would be. What do you think the estimated price of that vehicle should be with the specifications that
you
we just mentioned?
you've got some estimates on your
I
end.
do, but I'm not going to tell you. I want you to
Okay,
guess.
okay. Looking at it, looking at the price or the some of the tech.
No cheating. Don't you go into
I'm
that
not cheating.
browser.
I'm staying in the same article. 45.
Okay, so they're saying 45 is a base, 55 when it tops out.
Oh, really?
Right. So
Dang,
45 is a base. They're
nice,
saying the
nice.
GT
Good
line
guess.
should be 49,000 is what they're saying. So the standard rear wheel drive should be 45, long range should be 47, estimated. GT line should be 49 and the GT
Okay.
55. Okay, so but here's the thing, right? So you mentioned something else about where this pays off in their technology base, right? But I want to speak to something about the vehicle just really quickly. Does
Sure.
that come with the tax credit? Because if you're talking about the tax credit that you would get on top of that, you're talking
Mhm.
about a performance-based electric vehicle with all of these features for roughly, what are we talking about? $48,000, which would put it in killer
Yeah,
territory,
because
right?
unless I'm mistaken, Kia hasn't passed that threshold for
Not
the
that I
tech
know of,
credit.
right?
So right, so yeah, you would unless we're mistaken, Chad, you might be able to correct us, but unless you're mistaken, you're going to be well, depending when this thing actually hits the market and all those things, but
Hmm.
you might still be applicable for that tax credit, which is puts you low 40s
Low 40s, right? So here's
for this
one other thing, and
is
then we'll talk about
pretty
what you
quick.
mentioned before the show, and that is, I don't know why, but it's got paddle shifters. It looks like it's got paddle shifters, but
Oh, does it?
it does right here in this picture. It looks like behind the wheel there's a paddle shifter, and I'm like, okay, whatever floats your
All right,
boat.
hold up.
If that's
Oh yeah, I
if
see
that
it.
works, unless it does have a transmission in it, which would be a little weird.
No, I don't think that would be the case. I haven't heard anything about variable, shifting EV transmissions in Kias.
Mm-hmm. Because to the best of my
Um,
knowledge, Porsche is the only one that has that in the Taycan Turbo. But
yeah, yeah, yeah.
just man, the interior. So go on now. You had mentioned something else before we came on the air about the implications that this has with some of the partnerships that Hyundai has.
Yes.
Specifically,
Yes. Yeah, yeah. Just refreshing my memory
there
here
you
what I
go.
talked about. Yeah, yeah. It just came to me randomly as Mike and I were talking about this before the show that it's something to say that Kia, and then if you go down here, it says in the article it mentions that the EV6 shares the EGM platform and battery options with the Hyundai Iconic 5.
Mm-hmm.
And that immediately made me think, okay, let's not forget that Hyundai is also into EVs, electric EVs, eVTOLs, right?
Right.
That we talk about frequently on the channel. So aerial vehicles that are going to use electric components and bigger air taxis as we've been talking about a bit too. So I'm thinking to myself, oh, so the technology gains they've made for the whatever all the electric components and everything, all the research they've done for this car, or I mean, let's be honest, maybe the other way around. What we'll see, this is technology being shared between the two. So any developments that you may see that Hyundai may have for that platform
Mm-hmm.
for that they made with this Kia car here might be something that would go towards again, I'm looking at like fast charging capabilities and all that for the air taxi stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's total speculation on my part. I know who knows, but it's just let's just not forget that while a lot of these EVs are coming out for cars, let's not forget some of those players are also investing in air taxis as well.
Which means
So
the supply chain for them is going to be a little bit more streamlined when they get into their battery tech, into their wiring harnesses, all those things that are tied in that are going to be part of those electric components. First thing I think is supply chain. Their supply chain is going to be a lot
yeah.
stronger in some of those regions.
So James has a question here too. I did
Mhm.
want to get before we leave too much. James is asking, can any brand of car use a Tesla charging station? Currently, as it stands, James, no. Currently, the way Tesla supercharging stations function, they have a proprietary plug, and you could envision a way to get an adapter for such a thing. But when you're there, your car actually interfaces with the charger. And so, for example, if I went to a supercharger in my area, I wouldn't actually pay anything there. I literally just plug my car in and it charges, and then I drive away
Mm.
because it's all my car talks to the grid and then talks to the Tesla mainframe, and then it just charges me with the card on file there. So no, there's really, I mean, there's literally like no buttons or anything at this charging station. Like you
Just go.
just take the plug off. There's technically one button on the handle that unlocks it when you're done charging, because once you put it in your car, as it's charging and there's electricity flowing, it locks the handle, of course, right?
Right.
And then when you want to remove it, you have to press a button, and then it stops, and then you can take it out again. So yeah, there's literally like no interface
I
at the
think
pump, if you know what I mean. So
that's also
currently,
by design
no.
though, because right.
Yes.
And then here's the other thing. I know that his
Yes.
brother is heavy into the food industry, and I started reading articles recently that said that the Tesla charging station design is based on the fact that eventually they're going to get into food marketing, and that they're going to have it so that when you stop on long country cruises for your 18 minutes or whatever it is, you're going to dine and dash basically on
Yes.
Tesla's money,
Yep.
right? So that's something that they're
So
incorporating.
that's always been. There's a lot of those about more west. If you look up some of the Tesla Superchargers, the big ones in California, and that area of the country over there, yeah, they're literally like giant charging stations around like a place to eat and kind of relax with like Wi-Fi, except it's just for charging,
Your
just for
car,
Teslas.
just your
Like
Teslas,
it's just
right?
like it's like a rest area for like Teslas.
So
So that's some cool stuff out there. But as it stands currently, no other cars can use them. I know. I mentioned a little bit earlier, right, that may be changing, and Elon mentioned that
himself.
a while back
Yeah,
as
he
well. I
did.
don't have that link with me right now, but it's possible.
So
Yeah.
in chat, also Brad Young mentioned that EVs may be eligible for up to a $7,500 tax credit. Details are being finalized. This is great from a Google search. Now, the last thing I guess on this car that we really have to address is the looks. For the price, for the money, for the design, and going along with Kia's new logo, right? This thing looks hot. It's not an ugly car by any stretch of the imagination. As a matter of fact,
Yeah.
the
They've
more I
done
look at it,
a
the
good
more I
job
like
on
it.
design. Yeah.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I think red might not be its best color, and neither white, but the version that I see here in this picture, which almost looks identical to the production version, right? That's a fine, gorgeous looking car. And if that's what the EV6 GT looks like out of the factory, they're gonna have the sales. I mean, that thing's gonna sell. That's gorgeous. That's a pretty car. So, anyhow.
And I just wanted to touch on that thing because I just mentioned it. It is kind of big news of other cars can use those chargers. There was an article from Forbes about 20 days ago, which might have been the one I saw and I was talking about earlier, that basically says that Tesla's indicated next year they're going to allow other cars to use their charging network in Norway. And that may have some deal with something like specific to Norway. So that doesn't mean it's necessarily coming over here, but it also could be a test bed to see how that's going to function if it were to go somewhere else. So that's if you guys are interested in that link, I'll link that down. I'll add it to the stuff below so you guys can check it out if you prefer. But yeah, so nothing solid on that, but it's possible that might see something happens.
Sweet. And if you guys like what we've represented for the Kia EV6 today, let us know in the comments below what your thoughts are and whether or not you think this will be successful, and if Hyundai and Kia are on the right track with their Ioniq, and especially this GT's version of the car. Gorgeous. Like it so much. And so with that said, like, subscribe, and follow. And we appreciate all the energy you guys have been putting into the comments and such lately.